Continuing with reading my English translation of the Quran of chapter 2, the account of the Heifer of Israel, I will read now verses 229 to 235. A verbally announced divorce can be rescinded up to 2 times. After that, a marriage has to be held together by the previously declared terms, or it needs to be broken up on magnanimous terms. For a man who ends up divorcing, the Lord does not want you to reclaim any of the things that you had given to your wife while you were married. But if either husband or wife were going through some emotional turmoil that would make them violate the rights that God had given to each party in the relationship, and you, the people, were afraid that they would fail to uphold the rights that God had given to each in the relationship, then the woman can give up something of value in return for her emancipation. If the couple chooses to do such a thing, it would not be counted as a violation of anybody's rights. Their God-given rights form the framework of the relationship, and so do not violate these rights. The one who violates the rights of the other and transgresses the bounds drawn by God will be considered cruel and iniquitous. He would be supporting the dark forces that tyrannize the soul and helping to entrench the rule of repression. When a man divorces a woman, he forfeits the benefits of that union, and he no longer has a moral right to ask for or receive any comforting physical pleasure from that woman. She has to fully consummate a marriage with a new man and then get divorced before she becomes eligible to marry the former husband. Once she had completed all the divorce procedures, the original couple would then be free to get back together. If they decide to do so, they have to reach a certain level of confidence that they could uphold the rights that God had given to each one in the relationship. Their God-given rights form the framework of this relationship, and He has drawn those bounds. He explains the legal framework of this contractual relationship so that people will know the consequences of their violations. When you, the man, announce a divorce decree to your woman, and the waiting period of her separation comes to an end, you either take her back on the previously declared terms, or you part ways with her according to the previously declared terms. Do not keep a woman tied down by a legal contract out of malice, while depriving her of all of her other God-given rights in the relationship. If you do such a thing to spite her, you would be hurting yourself and tyrannizing your own soul. Adopt the morality revealed in God's verses and do not scoff at the divine rulings. Proclaim the heavenly sent privilege that God Himself had graced you with, and show by your actions how you are repaying the debt of His special blessings. Proclaim all that He had sent down to you of the book of accounts, and of the teachings of how to make sound judgments. Heed the call of His advice, and do not violate the rights of the collective by doing things that may displease God. Keep in mind that God remains aware of all the things that happen in the worlds, within and without, which encompass all your intentions, emotions, and actions. When you, the man, announce a divorce decree to your woman, and the waiting period of her separation comes to an end, you, the guardians, should not stand in her way if at this point she decided to go back to her husband. As long as the couple had reached a mutually acceptable understanding and had declared such terms in a mutually binding contract. The advice to adopt such a sensible approach is given to those of you who claim to have an honest faith. How you deal with the advice is a test of the honesty of your faith in God and a test of your belief that a new day will dawn for you after the ending of all of your days in this world. It is a test of the honesty of your faith in the rights of the collective. It is an approach that will sacrifice some of your selfishness. When adopted by the guardians and society at large, it can lift your spirits up to attain higher levels of human rights and purify your hearts from the sordid temptations to steal the rights of the weak. God, the keeper of the knowledge of rights, Allah, knows more than you do how to dispense His rights to everything and everyone in His creation. A baby can remain in the custody of its divorced mother for up to 2 years while she nurses him, but it's up to the father to decide if he wants to have the baby suckled for that full term. In such a case, a mother's living and clothing expenses, in line with society's acceptable living standards, will be paid for by the father. But no being should be asked to give more than it is capable of giving, so a man should not be asked to give more than he could. The interests of a newborn should not be used maliciously to deprive the mother of her rights, and the same applies to the father. The beneficiary of a deceased man's estate bears these same responsibilities. If they desire to wean the baby, then doing such a thing would not be a violation of any moral or legal rights, as long as they had both discussed the matter beforehand in a constructive manner and had reached that conclusion together. If you decide to have your infants suckled by foster mothers, then you would not be in violation of any of your duties, as long as you pay these workers what you might owe them in return for their services. Their earned wages should be in line with society's normal living standards, and do not violate the rights of the collective soul, the God of all, Allah. Keep in mind that nothing ever escapes God's attention, and His watchful eye sees what you do at any time. As for a wife who was left behind after her husband's soul got reclaimed and sequestered by the Lord of the Spirit, she should practice abstinence and remain in a self-denying state of celibacy for a duration of 4 months and 10 days. When a widow's mourning period comes to an end, you, the guardians, will not be breaking any rules if you allow her the freedom to pursue her marital wishes, as long as her actions remain transparent and in line with known moral standards. God will record how you treated a widow and observed her rights. Nothing ever escapes His attention, and He is kept well informed of your changing intentions. You would not be violating any codes of morality if during the period of her mourning you presented a widowed woman with some engagement proposals, and you would not be violating anybody's rights if you held back such proposals and kept them to yourselves. God is aware of a suitor's sentiment and how a woman may become an object of his desire. But do not make promises of the heart to a woman in a secret rendezvous with her. You have to hold a meeting in the openness of public transparency, inviting everyone involved, including her family and any guardians, so you may declare your intentions and make your commitment known in public. Do not tie the knot of marriage until she had completed her period of mourning. Keep in mind that God is sufficiently knowledgeable about the human self and your particular desires. Beware of provoking His anger if you lose yourself to desire. You should also know that if you do make a mistake in this respect, God will provide you with relief from guilt if you ask for His forgiveness. It is in his nature to be forgiving and to show sympathy to people. His tolerance for bad behavior is immeasurable.